Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Jordan Bateman, Vice President of Communications and Marketing for the Independent Contractors and Business Association. His website, icba.ca. Welcome back to the show, Jordan.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
Something that the lower mainland of British Columbia lacks is industrial land. And we're not talking about big, smoky, smelly, steel smelting things. Just places where you can put things together, get organized, perhaps run a trucking firm from, build fuel cells, those kinds of things. But Jordan, we still lack that kind of area. Vancouver has been getting rid of its industrial land at a horrible rate. And that's one of the reasons why property taxes in Vancouver are so high for individuals. The business community there is shrinking. Meanwhile, the city of Surrey is looking at doing what?
Well, the city of Surrey is looking at expanding their Campbell Heights Industrial Park by a significant amount. And we'll come back to that. But I want to touch on, you're exactly right about this industrial land shortage. You know, we talk a lot about residential prices skyrocketing. Industrial land shortage is even worse than the residential issue. What's happened is a number of areas that used to house industrial uses. You can think of Olympic Village in Vancouver. You could think of the old sawmill site in Fort Langley, and a number of other examples in between. They've been converted to residential land, and so you lose that job, those job hubs that come along with the industry. So right now, the vacancy rate in Metro Vancouver for industrial land is 0.5%. That's the second lowest rate in North America. And that tight supply has it sent prices for brownfield or current industrial sites through the stratosphere. There's a 1.64 acre piece of land, industrial land on Powell Street in East Vancouver. It's sold for $24 million for 1.64 acres. There's a half acre in North Vancouver industrial land sold for $7 million. There's 0.8 acres in Surrey, so a little bit more space. You think, it should be a little bit cheaper. It was a little bit cheaper than North Van, but still, $3.6 million for less than an acre of land, industrial land in Surrey. And what this all means is the rents have shot up. So, to rent space in an industrial park, it comes to about $15.50 per square foot across the region. It's about $10 in Toronto, Edmonton, and Calgary. So 50% more expensive to locate here in the Lower Mainland in an industrial park. And what that all means is, fewer jobs. Obviously, you're exactly right. We're not talking about old big smokestacks and scary things like that. We're talking about modern, clean, high-tech industry and light industry jobs. And those jobs generally pay, 11, 12% more than the average wage. Those are good jobs, often close to home, that are being forced out of the market simply because there isn't space to put them.
So the city of Surrey, what's proposed there?
So the city of Surrey, on their eastern border, has a existing industrial park called Campbell Heights. And it must have started like 15, 20 years ago. It used to be Stokes Pit, gravel extraction pit, and then it became this industrial park. Well, that industrial park will be full within 7 to 9 years. It's being built up very quickly. So Surrey, quite wisely, is looking to expand it, and they want to move it further south. And they want to add basically 620 acres to it, 420 acres worth of industrial land, and then 200 acres of conservation land to protect local streams and green space. So this would be a huge help in this industrial land shortage. Surrey estimates as many as 20,000 jobs could be located on that land. That doesn't include the construction to actually build the industries, the buildings, the warehouses, and other things that would be there. And it would be up to $20 million a year in tax revenue just for the city of Surrey, let alone what regional districts would collect, let alone the provincial government and income taxes, the federal government income taxes and GST. I mean, this would be a big cash cow, because it would generate, more than 8 million square feet of space. So, this is a big step forward. Metro Vancouver, it's been working its way through the process for months and months and months. It comes to the board this Friday, hopefully for a final vote. Our president, Chris Gardner at ICBA, he'll be he's requested to speak in favor of it. Well, quite frankly, it's ICBA's belief we need more of these jobs, we need more of this space, and Campbell Heights makes sense because it's close to the existing truck road network, it's close to the U.S. border, it's already used for industrial land just up the street, so it makes sense to expand it out.
Now, what kind of opposition have you run into concerning this? I'm sure there must be somebody against it. It is Vancouver, the home of we're against everything everywhere. Yeah,
a lot of the opposition seems to be centered around the Campbell River watershed. I think that, that conveniently ignores the fact that fully a third of the site would be protected in conservation lands. Like Surrey looks like they've tried their very best to balance that concern. There's always groundwater concerns as well whenever you have industry, but it's important to note, like, you say industrial land, and I think people flash back to a couple things. Either the big, smelting factory, the smokestack belching out all sorts of chemicals, or they, flash to, ugly industrial parks, that just kind of exist and people disappear into and generate traffic out of. Neither is really the case anymore. Industry has come a long way. People are doing this, a lot of clean tech, a lot of different things in these industrial parks. So there's and not a lot of that kind of wild pollution that used to be seen. So, we need to kind of have a modern view of this, of industry, and look at it as, high-paying jobs. Frankly, at a time where our supply chain is under intense pressure, this is an opportunity to bring some of these jobs, some of this work back to Canada, back to BC, back to the Lower Mainland in particular, and manufacture some of the things that we've become reliant on other places to send us. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that helps make our economy more resilient. Certainly helps provide jobs for people who need them, and it provides high-paying jobs that you can actually support a family and maybe just maybe be able to afford to buy a house or a condo or something down the road, based on a wage that's higher than average in the Lower Mainland.
Yeah, if people want to see what modern industry looks like, go to the city of Pittsburgh. Of course, it was famous for its big steel smelters and so on. Now it's one of the greenest cities on the planet. And yet, Pittsburgh is still a manufacturing center. It's still a blue collar town, but, you can make things, work right and, get rid of that old industrial pollution, have zero loops and so on if you are producing it, because now we're finding out a lot of the substances created during industrial processes are actually useful in themselves. So if you can capture them, you can resell that and not pollute.
Exactly. I mean, the margins are so thin now that people are looking to capture every single bit of revenue possible. And you've brought up a good one. Squamish has an interesting industrial park going up. And, there's concrete tilt-up buildings, but there are also buildings in there that are being very purposefully built as not only manufacturing places, but show areas. I toured one a couple of years ago being built by Kindred Construction. A high-end kitchen cabinet company was going in there. It's full of wood and glass to seize the view of the mountains around Squamish, and it is a beautiful place to work. It would be a beautiful place to be building these high-end cabinetry, and a beautiful place to go if you had a home and wanted to upgrade your cabinetry, to go take a look at it. So it's not that old-fashioned double smokestack in the middle of town anymore. These are very modern, very high tech, very kind of smart friendly outlets, and often with a little bit of a retail component as well, or some sort of showroom in order to attract customers.
Yeah, well, the area in Burnaby where Ballard fuel cells are, that's a beautiful area. It's built along the waterfront. It's green. It's friendly. So you don't have to have an industrial area that uses the word industrial. Maybe commercial would be a better, but as soon as you say the word industrial, people just have visions of those giant Victorian-style smokestacks belching out stuff.
Yeah, jobs lands gets used sometimes as well. I mean, think of Port Moody, right? There's a number of industrial pieces of land that have turned over into residential, but at the same time, you've got industry right next door to some of the best craft breweries in British Columbia, and it seems to work in Port Moody. It's a booming town. People want to move there, want to visit there. It doesn't seem like industry is scaring anyone away from Port Moody.
Do we know how long it'll take to make this decision? Because Canada is notorious for red tape and delaying anything that looks like it could create jobs.
Well, our hope is that they approve it in principle on Friday, and that the city of Surrey then can get to work on the actual planning rules and whatnot that will go into it. Because if the existing industrial park is 7 to 9 years away from being full, you want to make sure this one is ready at least 2-3 years from now in order to start accepting new projects. Because running out of space would be absolutely chaotic for the local, the regional governments and the regional economy. We've got to find places to put industry, and this seems like a natural one.
We'll have more with Jordan Bateman right after this.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Jordan Bateman. Jordan, are there any fears in the commercial industrial community about the new federal cabinet appointed by Justin Trudeau?
Well, I think there are. I think the fears have not been allayed by the cabinet announcements. There's a lot of concern over inflation, a lot of concern over rampant debt, a lot of concern about the sluggishness of the economy as the easy gain backs from the COVID shutdowns have been made, but now it's how do we grow from here? And frankly, one of the biggest concerns ICBA has is the selection of Stephen Guilbeault as the Environment Minister and Jonathan Wilkinson as Natural Resource Minister. Responsible resource development in British Columbia especially, and Alberta as well, drive a lot of construction jobs. We're very concerned that these folks have a long history of activism against oil and gas projects, even ones that provide green benefit by weaning other countries off coal, for example. So we're worried that this spells the end of any future LNG plans. This is selecting an activist and putting him in charge of the Environment Ministry and moving Wilkinson to Natural Resources should send shivers down the spine of a lot of folks in the industry.
Right. Now, when it comes to LNG, we just spoke with friend of the show, Stuart Muir, and he explained just one of those LNG ships leaving Kitimat will mean $110 million in revenue for Canada. And they plan to send 350 of those ships out to Asia every year. That would account for nearly $50 billion. Canada has $200 billion in foreign trade. It would be a quarter of our exports would just come out of little old Kitimat.
It's an incredible number. Just the sheer scale of that is absolutely incredible, and not one that I think many of us have put our minds around. And of that $110 million, a huge chunk of that gets transferred to government in a number of ways. There's all the income taxes for workers and GST and PST and oil and gas revenues, royalties, all those things. So, that's going to fund a lot of public services in this province and beyond. And we shouldn't poo-poo that, right? We can't continue to expand the size of government. We can't keep wanting more healthcare options, better education, more universities, all those important things. We can't keep wanting that without, finding a way in order to pay that bill. And LNG plants like the LNG Canada in Kitimat are a great way of doing that. And meanwhile, you're actually helping the world's environment, right? Like, LNG burns much cleaner than coal, which is what these communities in China are relying on right now. They're throwing up coal plants at coal-powered power plants at an alarming rate, belching greenhouse gas emissions out there. If we can send them clean LNG, which comes from a place that values human rights, values the environment, and is working hard to make it as clean as possible, we are actually doing a huge favor to the planet and slowing the number of GHGs going into the atmosphere. So it's a win-win, and that, to me, is what is so concerning about Trudeau's cabinet picks. Is I'm not sure that anything would ever be green enough when it comes to the oil and gas industry. I mean, this is someone who, has spoken against hydroelectric power, spoken against nuclear power, has spoken against oil and gas. That doesn't leave a lot of other options in how to develop power. We talk about things like geothermal. Well, that still involves digging into the ground and some environmental disturbance. We talk about wind, and that involves, huge windmills that, you have to build from things in the ground and then, have an effect on birds and other ecosystems. He talks about solar, but again, that takes up huge amounts of space and takes special things that have to come out of the ground again. So there's no perfect energy answer here. That's why we should be embracing LNG, because it may not be perfect, but it's a heck of a lot better than a lot of the alternatives.
And as we have found out in Europe, if you're going to rely on alternative energy like wind, the wind doesn't always blow.
Great point. And, how many of us, I think for a lot of British Columbians in the Lower Mainland, where we see wind power the most might be when we're driving to Kelowna, and you see those big windmills on the connector between Merritt and Kelowna. And, I may see them, I've maybe seen them a dozen times in my life, and I've only seen them turning 3 times. And, they've been purposely built there because that's a windy area. So, it does make you wonder if that is as, well, it does lead you to believe that it's not as reliable a source of power as maybe people hope. Look, like I said, there's no perfect solution. Everything has trade-offs, but the LNG trade-off seems a whole lot better than a lot of these other options.
Canada is notorious for red tape and throwing barriers in the way of progress when it comes to making money. Apparently, we're 62nd in the world when it comes to, holding business back and environmental study after environmental study. 10 years after you apply for a project and have spent tens of millions, you find out you don't get it, which really discourages investment in the country. And close to home, Vancouver City Council said, I think quite appropriately, that those patios they put out in front of restaurants and pubs during the pandemic can come back out again next summer. However, it's $250 to apply for it. Why does there have to be such an onerous application fee for businesses that have been slapped sideways during the last 2 years?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, if a business already has that patio in place, it shouldn't take a lot of work to approve it. We've had this discussion before, I think, Jim, about business licenses, for example. And, for a lot of municipalities, it's a cash cow, and they go back every single year to do it. However, there is the ability to, you could give a business license for 5 years. Not a lot changes year to year for most businesses. Why not offer a business license for 5 years or 10 years in order to reduce just a little bit of red tape and headache for some companies? These are the things that we should be talking about. The stat that we always talk about at ICBA is the World Bank found that Canada is 64th in the world for how long it takes to issue just a simple building permit. Not a complicated one, but one that actually complies with zoning and all the other rules. 64th in the world in the time it takes.
Oh, so you see, Jordan,
I was, economy.
Yeah, sorry, Jordan, then I was citing an out-of-date stat. I thought we were only 62nd.
We're falling 2 points.
We've fallen 2.
Look, either way, it's bad. It's very bad. And, some folks go, well, there are lots of countries out there just ramming things through. Okay, sure. Maybe you don't want to be number one. Okay, but 64th for a G7 economy? That doesn't sound right. And it's even longer in Vancouver. That's based on one in Toronto, which has a better, not much better, but a slightly better speed than Metro Vancouver as far as approving these types of things. So there is a lot going on. We continue to push for a cut in red tape. The Oregon government apparently is coming out with some changes to the community charter that may allow municipalities to forego public hearings on developments that fit within the official community plan. That, though, has to stand up to the scrutiny of the public, and who knows how they'll react to it. But, that's just, even if that passes and comes through, that's just one small step in what is a journey of many miles to try to cut through the red tape that's slowing down the economy.
The Independent Contractors and Business Association, are you still concerned about the labor shortage?
Yeah, we're always looking for folks to fill jobs at every level of the construction industry, from entry level all the way up to senior executive. You can go to icba.ca/jobs and send us a resume. We'll forward it on to a number of our members who are looking for workers. And yeah, it's a Wednesday. Apply on a Wednesday. You can be working by Monday on a job site, getting trained up in construction and starting a career that will support your family for a long time to come.
Jordan, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thanks for having me.
My guest has been Jordan Bateman, Vice President of Communications and Marketing for the Independent Contractors and Business Association. His website, icba.ca. If you're looking for a job, where should you go, Jordan?
icba.ca/jobs.
If you have any questions for Jordan or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com, our YouTube channel, Talk Digital Network. Find us on Twitter at Talk Digital Net. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of Howe Street Media Incorporated.